We're sitting in the library of the New York Historical Society, and I'm talking with Professor Carol Berkin. Professor Berkin is one of our leading authorities on women in the colonial period and in the early revolutionary period as well. And I've asked her here to come and talk to us about the daily lives of ordinary women in the colonial period. Let's pretend we're in around 1750 or so. If you had to tell us what the difference was between men's lives and women's lives in terms of the daily happenings in 1750 in New England, for example, could you do that?
A lot depended on whether you lived in a city or in the country. A lot depended on whether men's work took them to the counting house or down to the pier where there was a separation of spheres, or if everyone in a farm family worked together. And of course a lot depended on whether you were black or white. There is in any era no woman's life and male life. But in 1750 what had begun to develop that is interesting to most historians is a possibility of a social class of gentility. That is, women who could buy the things that once upon a time their grandmothers or their mothers had to make, women who ran households that had servants instead of their own daughters or children. And so you begin to get a group of women who, if not leading a leisurely life, certainly their daughters are beginning to lead a life of leisure, which is remarkably different than women in America before that. You begin to get women who pay attention to what the house looks like, the kind of food they put on the table, whether it's attractive, all the things that by the 19th century among the upper classes are going to become de rigueur for women of gentility. At the same time, you still have a vast majority of American women who are engaged in household production. That is, they're not, as my students always think, deciding what flowers to put on the table or what. They're actually making, taking raw materials and transforming them into usable goods for the family, so that you can't eat a shaft of wheat. You have to make bread. You have to turn it into something usable. And so there is still an enormous number of American white women who are engaged in manufacturing, in effect, household manufacturing of goods and foodstuffs and supplies for their family.
You sang to us that in this period before the Revolution, there are two kinds of work, or at least two kinds of work that women do. Mm-hmm. And one is the continuation of production or productive mm-hmm. labor in the household. Mm-hmm. But the other is a different kind of work now, the work of of socializing children, of making the house into a public space?
Yes, and also of supervising the people who work for them. All you have to do is read a Quaker merchant's wife's diary or journal in Philadelphia in the 1750s and 60s, complaining constantly about this woman is lazy, or she couldn't get this woman to polish the silverware properly. So there's a lot of supervision of housework, and certainly on plantations. So there is supervision, supervisory labor. There's also a greater focus on children. There's also a greater sense that you had to socialize your children to participate in the social class that you're a member of. And again, this is something that's going to really be much more fully articulated in the 19th century, but it's beginning. You get someone like Eliza Lucas Pinckney, who is reading Rousseau. As she says, I'm holding my child in one arm and I'm reading Rousseau, holding the book in the other, and I'm learning how to properly raise my child. This was not really something that her grandmother would have done. In earlier days, husbands were responsible for the socialization, teaching right from wrong to their children, and what quickly happened is boys were given vocational training in how to be a farmer or a blacksmith, and girls were given vocational training in how to slaughter pigs and make bread, and so there was not that kind of attention to attitude or to what's expected of you that you begin to get in 1750.